impact conversations. I'd like to give a quick background of this monthly conversation. The Development Impact Conversation series is basically what we call a fireplace of development actors that work in the development space in PNG, not only in World Vision, but across Papua New Guinea, where we meet every month to discuss issues that we learn or things that we can learn from other people that are doing other things that impact the work that we do. The focus is really to learn on aspects of development impact and how we can improve the practice of collecting, processing, and applying the data that we collect in our projects. And so every month, we do invite different people to join us and make presentations of the work that they are doing. I'd like us this afternoon for some that are joining us from across the world, to pay attention as we led by Stephen Otieno. I'm turning it over now to Rosalia, who is our usual hostess for these conversations before we get started. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Clement. Welcome again, everybody. Thank you so much for joining us this afternoon. Clement's given us a brief background on what the Development Impact Conversation Series webinars are all about. Just housekeeping rules. We ask that if you have any questions, feel free to type them in the questions section. If not, please jot them down and we'll have you ask them after Stephen's presentation. So grateful and blessed that Stephen has accepted our invitation, graciously accepted our invitation to present this afternoon for us in PNG and morning for him in Kenya. He's given us a short bio, which was shared through the flyer that was shared. And I'll let Stephen further introduce himself, his work, his role, and proceed with the presentation for this afternoon. Thanks so much, Stephen. Over to you.
Thanks a lot. Thanks a lot, Rosalia and Clement. Good afternoon, everyone. Good morning, everyone. My name is Stephen Otieno. I work with World Vision Netherlands. At the moment, I'm based in Nairobi, Kenya. My role is a global monitoring and evolution lead for a program called Right to Grow, which shortly I'll just share a bit about Right to Grow just to understand about the program a little bit. First, I'll just say thank you, Clement and Rosalia, for inviting me to be part of this process and to present and share lessons from Right to Grow with regard to outcome harvesting methodology. So just in terms of the overview of the presentation, I'll just share a bit on Right to Grow. Then we dive into the introduction to outcome harvesting, the purpose of outcome harvesting, the methodology itself, the elements of outcome statements, and what we have so far done within Right to Grow with regards to outcome harvesting, and just to share a bit of the templates on the ones that we use. So as a start, Right to Grow is a strategic partnership between 6 international organizations, that is Action Against Hunger, the Center for Economic Governance and Accountability in Africa called SIGA, Max Foundation, Save the Children, the Hunger Project, and World Vision. Within this arrangement, these partners have different roles. So World Vision Netherlands is actually leading in monitoring, evolution, accountability, and learning. The program is funded by the Dutch government and the civil society strengthening and the Power of Voices. And so we really work with the communities and CSOs in Bangladesh, Burkina Faso, Ethiopia, Mali, South Sudan, and Uganda. The program runs between 2021 and 2025. So besides the global partners, at country level, we work with the strategic CSOs that implement the program. And so beyond these ones that I've mentioned, There are a number of CSOs that we work with across the 6 program countries. So this is an advocacy program focusing on child nutrition and WASH, and considering the complexity of the advocacy initiatives, the different contexts that we work in, we've put together a number of approaches in MIL, and one of them that we use is the outcome harvesting, which basically is just an evaluation approach in which evaluators, grant makers, and key staff identify, formulate, and verify outcomes in programming context where the relations between the causes and effects of the work that we do are not fully understood. And of course, outcome harvesting has now proven to provide just being useful in terms of supporting this process to be able to sieve or harvest some of the outcomes in the course of implementation, to be able to define concretely most of what the intervention aims to achieve, or even what specific actions will be able to be undertaken over the project period. Based on our experience and the approach itself, it has proved to be useful in understanding whether and how our advocacy initiatives have contributed to changes in behavior of actors. It also provides useful documentation for internal and external reporting for identifying good materials for case studies of the changes that take place, but also to enhance learning for external evaluations. As I'll share with you, we've been able to use this as part of our midterm review, which we just completed towards the end of 2023. And to measure progress, we focus more on analyzing and also descriptions of what has changed and the role of right to grow in this whole process. So basically, it's about identifying changes and explaining the steps, the stories behind the changes that have taken place, but being able to link this with the theories of change. And just a quick reminder, because I know as in the development world, this may not be too new to us, but in the context of outcome harvesting, outcomes are observable changes in behavior, performance, relationships, and policies and practices of social actors to which the project has directly or indirectly contributed. And now, again, for the social actors, these may be individuals, may be groups or communities or organizations that change as a result of an intervention. So, why do we really promote outcome harvesting in the program? The aim is to harvest or identify changes, collect evidence of what has been changed, and also to determine whether and how the project interventions have also contributed to the change. And this is used now to analyze the progress of the program against the theory of change. The process of outcome harvesting is able to provide evidence, and these findings help us to inform what has been achieved. It also helps us to understand the environment and the context in which we work, and also assess the effectiveness of the project, track program performance against the theory of change as I've mentioned, but also to be able to discuss advocacy strategies and help in taking decisions to modify the projects or programs where it's needed. Furthermore, it contributes to qualitative reporting, and this also includes annual and semi-annual reports that we do within Right to Grow program. It also informs planning in the course for preparations for the following year, but also inform or contribute to answering some of the learning questions, as we'll also see from a few examples that I'll be sharing in the course of the presentation. The process itself also helps us really to improve identification and also exchange of achievements within Right to Grow, and just help us to shift our mindsets from outputs to outcomes, because in the regular and conventional MIL, where we have got the results framework or the log frames with the indicators that are expected. So outcome harvesting really help us to move beyond outputs, but also focus on outcomes that are realized in the course of the project. It's also improved common understanding of the objectives of the results, but more importantly, foster learning, as we will see in terms of the methodology that I'll be sharing shortly. It's also important to note that we have been able to connect outcome harvesting with the existing meal processes. So it is actually connected to our meal framework, as well as what we have as a global indicator guide and the existing reporting processes. As I've mentioned, this is about the semi-annual reporting, the annual reporting, and also the planning processes. And so in the context of planning and timelines for the planning and the reporting processes, so outcome harvesting is also part of these timelines, so that we link outcome harvesting to these meal processes. However, it's also important to note that outcome harvesting doesn't replace our meal processes. So in this case, the regular gathering of meal data continues as part of the meal processes. And so outcome harvesting just complements these processes to be able to provide more background information. Why is it important or relevant for advocacy? As we appreciate is that advocacy is never a linear process. It's just a lot of back and forth. Whatever might have been planned may not go as planned. So in this aspect, outcome harvesting becomes important because it helps to capture unexpected results. It also allows for flexibility as opposed to other meal processes and approaches. Also recognizes the contribution of others while capturing small and big results. It also captures positive and negative outcomes. And also more importantly, is that it doesn't really rely a lot on results framework because of the complexities in which we operate within the advocacy space. And so this therefore allows us really to be able to navigate back and forth, but be able to sieve and harvest any outcomes that are realized in the course of the project. As a methodology is actually a qualitative method which we use to identify actual outcomes in complex contexts, considering the 6 countries with diverse backgrounds, diverse contexts, diverse policy space. So this helps us really to ensure that in the course of the program, we are able to harvest key successes, key achievements, even failure thereof, but also to understand how the interventions have been able to contribute to such outcomes. What we call outcome harvesting formula is that in the policy space that we operate in, there are a number of processes that will help us really ensure that we harvest the outcomes. So first, there must be a change that takes place. This can be in terms of the agenda, can be in terms of the actions, can be in terms of relationships or practices and even the policies. But then it's also important to identify the social actors. These may be individuals, as I'd mentioned, groups or communities, as well as institutions. But more importantly, what is the contribution of Right to Grow? So when we combine all this together, then we should be able to have harvested outcomes and attribute it to the role and contribution of Right to Grow. Then, of course, in this process, who are the main players? Within Right to Grow, and a lot of work takes place in 6 program countries. And so a lot of outcomes are harvested in the 6 program countries. However, we also have presence and contribution at the Dutch level. So we have got the Dutch lobby and advocacy. So apart from the 6 countries, we also do outcome harvesting for our Dutch level lobby and advocacy. But more importantly, much of it happens in the countries. So in the countries, we have got outcome harvesting masters who coordinate the overall process and also do quality control. So the outcome statements are exchanged within the countries, so that is among the partners at country level, and these are discussed at country level. Then now, through internal review processes, these are sieved, and at the same time, as I've mentioned, at the global Dutch level, the same process is done. Then the overview of the harvested outcomes for countries, as well as the global lobby and advocacy are shared with the global meal team, who now our role is to consolidate and also make it available through an online space, which I'll share if time allows, just to see what we have been able to harvest. Then, of course, within this space now, there are a number of key roles. Those who are harvesting, the harvesters, and this may not necessarily be male persons. For advocacy program, we have got program staff who are implementing the project, and so they help really in identifying the changes that take place. And so they are actually the people who do the harvesting. Then, of course, we also recognize that there are also those who are interested in the harvested outcomes, who are called the harvest users. And these are individuals or organizations, it may be within Right to Grow or outside. And so their role is really to make use of the harvested outcomes, and more importantly, for the advocacy program that we run, it helps really to review the advocacy strategy. In each of the program countries, we have got outcome harvesting masters who are the people who coordinate and also provide quality assurance for the outcome harvesting processes. And so they require the harvesters to provide outcomes to them, and they lead the process of refining the outcome statements and have them into a logbook, which I'll share shortly. Then now at global level, we have got outcome harvesting global masters, who are the people that are at global level to support the process at country level, but also work closely with the global advocacy team to ensure overall quality and also facilitate the exchange between the countries. Just briefly, most of you may be aware of this, but outcome harvesting is a 6-step process. So basically, what we have been able to do in terms of the first process is to design the harvest. Here, our mill team, communication team, the lobby and advocacy team, those who are involved, come together to agree on the objectives of the outcome harvesting, who needs to do what, at what point does this need to be done. And so it is a planning process where we agree, and also based on the learning objectives per country, be able to outline really the focus of the outcome harvesting based on the focus of the program, but also the work that is taking place within the countries. The second step is to review the documentation and draft outcomes. This is led by our outcome harvesting masters, so the mill colleagues in country. And what happens here from our reports, from what is happening in the field, they are able now to identify and go through the documents, put together outcome statements, review, and come up with agreed outcome statements. What we have in place is that in terms of frequency, outcome harvesting is done regularly. However, some countries prefer monthly, but what we have as a program is that on quarterly basis, countries sit down to review the outcome statements that have been gathered over a period of time. They review it internally. Then based on that, then the outcome harvesting masters update what we call the logbook through a tool that I'll also share, the outcome harvesting form. Because this is a joint process, beyond the bill colleagues, the program colleagues play an important role. And so the step 3 is looking at how is everyone, all key stakeholders involved in the program, come together in terms of reviewing, in terms of agreeing, in terms of prioritizing and seeing which key outcome statements are really being able to demonstrate the change that is realized over the implementation period. Then, of course, from time to time, there may be need to bring in external validators. This may be partners outside Right to Grow. And recently, the midterm review provided an opportunity where we brought in external consultants who help us at country level just to validate and substantiate most of the outcome statements to be able to make sense out of it and link into the program outcomes. Then, of course, the analysis and interpretation is also important into what we call the outcome harvesting logbook that we've used. And shortly I'll just share a template on that. And of course, what is important within our advocacy program is that This is very useful in terms of communication, in terms of just making decisions beyond the mill processes, but more importantly, providing evidence for lobby and advocacy at local level, at national level, and at global level. Then in terms of what we have as outcome statements, there are some elements that are critical that we've used. So one, an outcome statement must have a title, and this may be 1 or 2 sentences just to outline who changed what, where, and when. And so here requires us to be as specific as possible so that we are also able to demonstrate the change that has actually taken place. If there's any need for additional information, then this can be elaborated, though it is not compulsory. It's also important to look at the relevance of the outcomes, which may be 1 to 2 sentences just to describing why the outcome represents the progress towards what we have as a theory of change within right to grow. It also has to outline the contribution to the outcomes. And this describes, just in a few sentences, as I'll share some of the outcome statements, the contribution of right to grow or the particular partners that we work with. Then, of course, there has to be evidence, which is a documentation to show the change that happened, as well as the evidence that shows the direct contribution. Besides the 5 components, because in the development, while there's also aspects of gender inclusion, just to see the extent to which men, women, youth, persons with disability have been impacted by the changes that we are reporting. So this is also one aspect that is being considered, and we encourage countries to also indicate the extent to which the gender and inclusion aspects are being addressed by the changes that are being documented. So, and I hope, I think I've moved fast before stopping, just to check with you, Rosalia, if we are on course.
Thanks, Stephen. We're okay. Please continue.
Okay. Okay, thank you. Yeah. So, where are we in terms of as a Right to Grow team? As I mentioned, Right to Grow works in 6 countries. So in all the 6 countries, we have been able to train 120 staff and also provided refresher trainings in 2023. In each of the countries, we have got a pool of outcome harvesting masters who coordinate outcome harvesting processes. These are mostly mill colleagues, but also there are other program staff who have come in to volunteer to support the process. And so we have got a number of outcome harvesting masters across the programs. We also have available workshop materials that from time to time colleagues can refer to. And at this point, it's also important to mention that we have developed an e-learning course so that new colleagues can engage with the outcome harvesting methodologies, even for those who have been trained, and also refresh themselves. Of course, over the period, we have been able to harvest a number of outcomes. So I'll just share a few examples. Recently, in 2023, we had got a midterm review of the project. And so this provided really very strong input into the MTR process. We use this also to review our theory of change through outcome mapping process. It has also been useful to help in terms of supporting planning by informing and also adjusting annual plans where possible. But more importantly, feeding into our lobby and advocacy processes and used in our reporting then for communications purposes. It has been able to help us in profiling and also used in our publications. I'll just share some of the practical aspects. In terms of the trainings, what we have been able to see across the program countries is that 4 to 5 days is sufficient for this kind of training. Otherwise, it depends on capacity of the countries, capacity of partners. So sometimes it can go beyond that. But what we have seen across program countries is that 4 to 5 days have been sufficient. And just outlining as what you can see on your screen, looking at the introductions, reflections on the theory of change, putting actually meal at the center, and of course, just looking at the methodology itself through the training period of, especially for day 2 and day 3. Then, of course, clarifying the roles and responsibilities for those who are supposed to be involved, and then working on the work plan. So we've seen 4 days being sufficient. Otherwise, other countries have also introduced a number of aspects during such trainings. So 4 to 5 days are proved to be sufficient. This is just an highlight. Among the 6 countries we work with, the first country that went through the training was Uganda. So this is just a sneak peek of the colleagues that we trained in Uganda. For our outcome harvesting masters in Uganda, we have 2 colleagues. And of course, now this has increased because we've done further trainings. In terms of just looking at the outcome statements and how it relates to the theory of change, here is just a few examples. On my left, which I also hope on your left, it says that in September to October 2022, in community Kazingu, 5 water pumps were repaired through first-time funding by the district governor after community meetings. So if we try to map this into our outcome, into our theory of change, we'll see that this relates to an intermediate outcome, which is looking at the communities have access to affordable nutrition and wash services. Then the other example is the second one. On 18th October 2022, the Director General of the Ministry of WASH committed in a meeting with CSOs to start engaging nutrition experts when developing the ministerial WASH budget for 2024. And then now we bring it back to our theory of change and see the link to the intermediate outcome F, which is looking at the multi-sectoral approach reflected in sector policies and action plans. Then the third example that we've been able to harvest is that on 6th June 2022, CSO Kadam was a speaker for the first time at the International WASH Conference in Addis Ababa about community engagement in reviewing WASH service provision by private sector and government. Again, if you try to map it within our theory of change, then we see where it falls, which is about the CBOs and CSOs have the technical skills to track, analyze, and report allocation and expenditures. So these are some of the examples that we have used over the implementation period to see how outcome harvesting is helping us not only to demonstrate results, but also to see what is our performance against the theory of change. Are we still on track? Are there areas that we need to reflect upon? And the midterm review provided us an opportunity really to map the outcomes across the countries to see where we are making good progress, areas where we need to do a lot of adjustments. And from this, we also realized that looking at the 4 pathways, or the 4 outcomes, there are areas where we are on track, there are areas that we need to adjust, and outcome harvesting has helped us really to generate a number of evidence towards this. This is the example of outcome mapping during a training in South Sudan. And this is actually related to just the slide that I've mentioned previously in terms of mapping the outcome statements vis-a-vis the theory of change. So just based on the example I've shared in the previous slide, one of the indicators that we have within Right to Grow is looking at the number of times CSOs have succeeded in creating space for their demands and positions by setting the agenda, influencing the debate, and or creating space for engagement. And here we have got 2 outcome statements. I don't know if I wanted to have a knowledge recap a bit from the participants, just to allow any of us to look at these two outcome statements and let us know which one really relates to this indicator. The first one is that on 1st March 2023, the Ministry of Health, in collaboration with other line ministries, formed a steering committee to develop nutrition policy after a series of consultations. That is one outcome statement. The second outcome statement is that on 24th September 2023, the chairperson of the Specialized Committee on Finance and Planning invited Right to Grow Consortium to attend the third national budget reading. And I don't know, Rosalia, if any of the participants can share any view about the two outcome statements in relation to the indicators. I'm not able to see, but I really wanted to just ask participants just to share ideas on the first and the second outcome statements, which one really relates to this outcome that is at the top of the screen.
Sure, Stephen. So what we can do is if anybody would like to respond or answer, if you can raise your hand and then we'll just let you speak.
Yeah, sure.
Sure. Or just say, if anybody would like to respond, just raise your hand and then I'll just let you unmute you. Okay, Collis is there. Where are you, Collis? Did you have your hand up, Collis? Did you want? Hey, Collis, did you want to speak? Did you want to respond? I've just unmuted you.
Yes, yes. So based on the, hello?
Please go ahead.
Yes, go ahead.
Yeah, so based on the two scenarios that you gave, looking at the indicator, I'm thinking it's the first one in the dark blue space, which is more related to the indicator that is mentioned above.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
Thanks, Carlos. Yeah, thanks, Carlos.
Thanks, Carlos. Anyone else would like to also respond?
Okay, no worries. I think in terms of time, so yeah, thanks, Carlos. So if you look at the indicator is actually talking about the number of times CSOs have succeeded getting the space. So looking at the first outcome statement is about the Ministry of Health in collaboration with other line ministries. So basically it's about the ministry itself that have come together to develop the nutrition policy. In the second outcome statement, looking at the chairperson of the Special Committee on Finance and Planning, invited Right to Grow Consortium. So here we see the space for the CSOs, the Right to Grow, for example, that have been created. So looking at the indicator and the two statements, so the second statement fits in because it outlines the space created by the CSOs. So that is just an example. I'll just share a few examples, especially from our Dutch lobby. Was that on the 23rd May? This is 2023. The Dutch Minister for Foreign Foreign Trade and Development Cooperation committed to add an addendum to the Dutch International Water Ambition, which focuses on water and the optimal connection to policy in the areas of climate, food, finance, energy, urbanization, health, and biodiversity, thereby strengthening coherence within the national and international programs and policy. So this relates to an intermediary outcome within the theory of change, which is looking at the right to grow partners, CSOs, and government engage in some national and national platforms for data sharing, peer learning, and adaptation. So what was the contribution of Right to Grow? As you can see, this was not a one-off. It was a result of a number of processes that have taken place over the period. And so this commitment was made after the commission debate, where parliamentarians argued for these additions. And the right to grow role was based on the policy paper, Food for All policy paper, and NWP letter to the minister, which also contributed to this outcome. The second example is that on the 30th June 2022, the Netherlands Water Partnership sent a letter to the Minister for Foreign Trade and Cooperation arguing for increase in the Dutch water ambition, which aims to provide access to sanitation for 50 million people, the water for 30 million people, and also integrated water management for 20 million people. Yeah, and a systematic approach for reaching these targets. So this relates to an intermediary outcome on right to grow partners and CSO that lobbied on us to better align funding and programming. And so what was the contribution? This was based on our Dutch lobby advocacy focal person who helped to write the letter. And this process also started way before. So from these examples, we see that outcome harvesting help us to talk about the story and provide the story behind the changes that have taken place. And basically for an advocacy project or program, it is not usually a one-off process. It's based on a number of interventions that have taken place over the years so that you can be able to relate the contribution of your interventions to the changes that we are reporting. What are some of the key lessons that we have learned over the years? One, participation of those who influence the outcome is crucial. This is because this need for team involvement. Then starting with outcomes and working backwards also presents a new way of thinking about the change. So we don't only focus on the expected results, but we look at the change that has taken place and look for really having the stories behind the change. Look at what is happening around us. Let us listen. Let us hear, let us see, and observe the things that change. So basically, again, we do not look at the indicators or the resource framework as such or the log frame, but we think and discuss about the results we have seen and then link this and work backward within the program. Benefits of team development that we have seen, outcome harvesting is a joint responsibility. So colleagues come together to review and validate the existing list of harvested outcomes. They complete and add any details onto the outcome statements. They add any other outcomes and also ensure the team is satisfied with the quality of the outcomes that we present. Within outcome harvesting, we have got two main templates. So there's the outcome harvesting form, which I'll share shortly, just for you, but I can also share by email to Rosalia. Then we also have an online platform where we have got the outcome harvesting logbook, where we can be able to put together all our outcomes. So I think if you allow me, I'll stop sharing this and show you shortly just what we have as outcome harvesting form.
We're doing good for time, Stephen. Please do.
Okay, thank you. So let me stop this and bring in another one. Outcome harvesting form. So this is what we're using as outcome harvesting form. As you can see, what we have is the first column on outcome title. This relates to the examples that I had shared earlier. Then you also need to look at the relevance of the outcomes. To which outcome within the theory of change is this relating to? What has been the contribution of the implementing partners, of in this case, the right to grow. And also it's also important to look at the evidence of change and the contribution. what has then of course, from time to time, we may bring in external validators. And as I've mentioned, the aspects of gender and inclusion is also very critical to see the extent to which women, men, and children have been impacted. So these are what we use. So what happens is that at country level, we have got a number of implementing partners. So each partner completes this outcome harvesting form. Then periodically they come together at a country where all partners now come, share the harvested outcomes. They sit down to review. They see really what makes sense to them, what speaks to the contribution at country level. Then now on quarterly basis. So they have a one form that is completed from the countries that is shared now after 6 months with the global mill colleagues also who do a review process to ensure that whatever we have really makes sense. So after this, completing this outcome harvesting form, based on the reviewed outcome statements that have been shared by the countries, then we have got outcome harvesting masters both at country level that support us at global level to complete what we will call the outcome harvesting logbook, which I'll share again shortly. I think it may be small, but just to check with you, Rosalia, if you're able to see something.
I'm okay. You might want to zoom in a bit or just a little bit. Yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah, let me try.
I think that's a little better. Perhaps we can. Yep.
Yeah, perhaps. But of course, I think so. What happens is that this is an online platform which we use in SharePoint, and it's accessible by everyone. So once we have cleaned the outcome statements and have it within the logbook, then everyone at country level, at global level, can have access to this outcome harvesting logbook. So the colleagues working on the Dutch lobby and advocacy are able to use this to share with the key policymakers on the changes that are taking place across the program countries. And even for the countries, they are able to see what is happening in Bangladesh, what is happening in Burkina Faso, what is happening in Ethiopia, in Mali, in Uganda, in South Sudan, and all that. And through that, then even for the across the countries, they're able also to see and learn from what other countries are doing. At a global level, we are also able to see what is happening across the program countries. And through this, we are able also to demonstrate the small and the big results that we are able to see and be able to demonstrate over the years. So I think that was just an example, but just to go back to what we have our presentation. Yeah, because basically we've come to the end, and I want to just bring it over to you, Rosalia.
Wow, thanks so much, Stephen. What we'll do here is we will take any questions. We've got about 20 minutes for questions. So if anybody has any questions, please raise your hand and then we'll just give you, let you put your mic on and then you can ask the question to Stephen. And then we'll give another, right at the end, I'll just do a summary. So if there's any questions, please raise your hand so we can allow you to have the floor and ask Stephen any questions that you may have. Okay. Wow, Stephen, I think we, I think we must have given them a bit much. Oh, Collis, please go ahead. You can unmute yourself.
Yes. Yes. So my question is, this outcome harvesting, is it like you mentioned in the start, this for advocacy? So will this outcome harvesting also relate to like structured projects, like for example, WAS projects? Yeah, thank you. That's my question.
Yeah, thank you. If there's no other, then I can just respond. Yeah. Yes. So thanks, Carlos. So yeah, basically, outcome harvesting help is in complex situations, more in aspects of advocacy, peace building, where the results are not really easy to come by over a period of time. So it has been used for advocacy and peace building processes. However, even for the direct implementations, there are instances where we talk about intended results, or there may be results that are able to be harvested over a project period, not necessarily about the expected output, expected outcomes of the project. So even for the direct service delivery, it's helpful. However, it is more relevant to instances where we operate in complex situations in advocacy and peace building, where it may not be easy really to realize the outcomes because of the complexities that accompany advocacy and these are the complex processes. So that is why it helps most. However, even for the direct service delivery, it can be helpful in just generating some of the immediate results in the course of implementation.
Thank you. My other question is, you mentioned the theory of change. So this means that to do outcome harvesting, you must have like a complete theory of change to match up the indicators and to verify whether this matches the specific outcomes, right?
Yes, Carlos. Yeah. So yeah, I mentioned theory of change, and as you can see, we are able to map the small outputs or the spot outcome or the changes that we realize and document. We can map this on the theory of change, and this can help you see which areas are we making good progress and what are the contributions of the implementing partners, which areas are we not really making good progress, so that it can also help in decision making to see where you need to put more efforts compared to others.
Thank you.
Welcome, Carlos.
Thanks, Carlos. We have a question from Willie. I'm not sure if he's able to unmute or not, but he's asking, asking or making a statement, it seems outcome harvesting is an evaluation assessment. How can it be used for monitoring?
Okay. Yeah, thank you. Yes, yeah. So what we have done is that we have linked outcome harvesting with the planning and reporting process. So in our semi-annual reports, we include outcome statements just to demonstrate some of the key processes and successes across the outcomes. Even in the annual reports, we use this. So on a regular basis, within 6 months, we are able to put this together and make use of this. Then in terms of process that I had mentioned, is that outcome harvesting is done on a regular basis. In some countries, they do it monthly, they sit together. In other countries, we encourage a quarterly review process. So when at country level, partners come together to review the outcome statements and also to learn out of it, then it helps in monitoring because we are able to see which areas are we really progressing. Then on annual basis, when we at country level, we have got the country level theory of change. So they're also able to do this kind of outcome mapping that is on our screen. So from that from that process, they're able to see which areas are they making progress, which areas do they need to improve. And in that sense, therefore, it helps in monitoring and adjusting where possible. When they work on the annual plans, they have now prioritized where they need to put a lot of efforts. And so that helps in monitoring, both through semi-annual reporting and also in the annual reporting.
Thank you, Stephen. I hope, Willie, that's answered your question. We have one from Turea. Turea, please go ahead.
Thanks, Rosalie, and thank you for the presentation. I kind of dropped off for a bit there. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Okay. Thank you, Stephen, for your presentation. I just wanted to ask a question around the approach of outcome harvesting and the issue of subjectivity, and how you would sort of mitigate subjectivity in selecting of outcomes.
Yeah, thanks. Yeah, really, that's very important. Outcome harvesting has quite some biases in terms of subjectivity. So what we have been doing is that at country level, each partner put together outcome statements, and then they meet on a quarterly basis. And through these meetings, they are able to review the outcome statements. And so through this process, they are now really addressed to see the extent to which they like to grow has made contributions, but also to see if these changes really are the clear changes that are also aligned with the theory of change, so that it's based on the theory of change. And when they do mapping, then they're able to see which specific outcomes this relate to. So through this, they're also able to really put their hands into what are the key contributions, so that first, it is not just mentioned as a matter of mentioning or just indicating what try to grow has not contributed to. So through this review process, that helps. Then the validation process is also helping in addressing biases and subjectivity, where we bring in external validators who are mainly out of this consortium, just to help us also make sense, to see whether whatever really we are reporting first makes sense. It's not very subjective. So there are three levels, mainly two levels of the internal review process and the external validation to help us address some of the biases. But generally, as you have mentioned, outcome harvesting also has got also biases, issues with the subjectivity. But we try as much as possible to address this through the internal peer review process, but also the external validation.
Thank you.
Okay, thanks, Turea. Just a follow-up question from Willie, please, Stephen. He said, then the rules will need to be modified. Roles, ROOLS. I'm assuming that's an M&E term of sorts.
Okay. Yes, so yeah, we've seen that. Yes, I think in terms of I did not see that statement well. Yes, but I think if it is about the roles, as I understand, is that the key players in outcome harvesting. And so the program team plays an important role in terms of harvesting, but the outcome harvesting masters in our arrangement also provide support and quality assurance. Then also through the peer review, we are also to address this. Then of course, linking up with other colleagues, especially within Right to Grow, to generate this evidence for the lobby and advocacy. But in that process, again, the role of external validators become very critical. And so whatever I presented then, as only mentions, the role of external validators within outcome harvesting becomes very critical, so that we are able to address the aspects of subjectivity and ensure that whatever outcome statements that we have really make sense, and also they're above board in terms of the changes that have taken place, as well as the contribution of the implementing partners.
Thank you, Stephen. Willie did a typo. He meant to say tools instead of roles. Thanks, Willie.
Oh yeah, tools. Okay. Oh yes. Yeah. So yeah, true. Yeah. So the template that I've shared just outlines the title or the relevance of the statement, the contribution of right to grow, as well as the evidence. So then the second last is about the external validation, which again, from experience, this takes time because to bring in external validators also requires a number of engagements with these people so that they are able to validate. But I also understand, as Willie says, the tools can be adjusted to ensure that all what we are talking about are captured. But from the experience, we've seen this helping. And of course, as it was suggested, really, to look at the aspects of addressing the biases, to look at the aspects of addressing subjectivity through internal and external processes.
Thank you, Stephen. That makes so much more sense than the roles. We're just going to open it up to perhaps another 1 or 2 questions if anybody has any questions. We've got another 10, 15 minutes. Terea, you have another question? Please go ahead.
Thanks, Roz, and thanks again, Stephen. I think just a follow-up question to the initial question that I asked around subjectivity, and I appreciate the response you gave, but just in terms of, I'm just considering the work I do in advocacy as well, and how we engage with a lot of stakeholders. And just listening to your presentation and that issue of subjectivity, what has been your experience, Stephen, when it comes to sort of interpretation of the challenges because of the subjective nature of outcome identification and also interpretation, which I think could lead to disagreements among different stakeholders? What has been your experience in terms of addressing those challenges in reaching consensus on, let's say, either the significance or the attribution of the different outcomes? Thank you.
Okay. Yes, thank you. Yeah, very good question. Yeah, subjectivity is an issue. So what we have experienced, especially within the internal review process. So within the countries, we've had instances where the process of agreements and consensus building takes a while. But we have a process where the partners will sit and discuss, go through the outcome statements to see which ones make sense. And again, what we have done, outcome statement is used alongside other processes. So we have got other lobby and advocacy tools that we use, other M&D processes that are in place. So apart from the outcomes, the outcome harvesting process, then we have got the other lobby handbook, for example, where we work together, partners meet together to address these outcomes, as well as the broader project or processes that take place. So what we consider outcome statement as to bring in the complementary aspect, just to see, based on the achievements that have been realized, again, what is outcome statement contributing to this process, so that we are not looking at it as a standalone process. And through that, then we are able to see the key outcome statements that are relevant, but also link it to the actual results from the other processes within MIL for the lobby and advocacy process. So through this, we have seen outcome harvesting as complementary, not looking at it as a standalone, but to see how is it really supporting the progress and the meal processes of the project. So through this, I think we've been able to enhance this and just to integrate and look at the contribution again of the outcome harvesting to the broader meal processes for the program.
Okay. Sorry, Terry. I hope.
Thanks, Stephen. Thanks, Rose.
Okay, thanks.
Okay, thanks so much. So I'm just keeping an eye on the time. We're pushing about 10 minutes past 3 and I'm just weary. So if I may, I'm not an M&E practitioner, but I do work in the development space. So I think many of us here in PNG are more familiar with the results-based management, which is a structured approach. So outcome harvesting in its applicability is very complex, but some of the key features include flexibility, qualitative data, retrospective, contextual understanding, and emergent learning, and the ability to be able to work backwards and to have that flexibility. It's a very, very complex method. And we very much appreciate, Stephen, you sharing it, your insights with us. Post this presentation, I will avail the presentation itself and any resources that Stephen shares through to all the participants today. And I will also be sharing the presentation on our YouTube site as well. But I think in closing, thank you so much, Stephen, for your insight. It's been, for me, a new learning curve in this space, and I hope it has been likewise for all of our participants who joined us this afternoon. So I think with that, what we'll do is I will be in touch with you for some of the resources and the links that you mentioned, and I will share that to everyone post the presentation. But thank you so much for your time. We will close things off here. And hopefully we'll see you again this year sometime to hopefully share with us again in this space.
Yeah, thanks a lot, Rosalie and team. Thanks for all the insights, all the questions, and everyone to listen to me. And I also look forward to engaging with you at any other point, and have a good evening.
Thank you so much. And thank you everyone for attending, and we'll be in touch soon.
Thank you.
Thanks,
Bye-bye.